It took 2 years to write this talk, but we're finally here, and I'm so excited to see you all. Oh my gosh. I have to be honest, though. I'm kind of lucky that it took us 2 years to get here together, because when I initially wrote this, I was wrong. Together, we're going to look at the gray areas of romantic consent. Not harassment or assault, but those less clear areas of flirting or wooing or trying to figure out if we like each other that trip us up. We'll acknowledge that this gray area exists, and we've all been there. We'll face our personal fears and shame around our involvement in the gray area and how it gets us collectively stuck at binary, reactionary extremes. These extremes are unproductive at giving us the two things we're looking for: safety and connection. They prevent us from addressing the gray area head-on to get clarity around boundaries, which would help protect us against actual assault and harassment. And as cancel culture accelerates, the ambiguity of the gray area, exacerbated by our reticence to address it, decreases the freedom and pleasure we could have from actual moments of connection. Some context for why I'm here. I was one of the first women to come out publicly against Harvey Weinstein with allegations of what clearly qualified as harassment or assault. When deciding whether to go public with my story, which ultimately turned into the New Yorker piece by Ronan Farrow, I was terrified, and I tortured myself over the decision for months. I honestly expected that it would, best case scenario, cause a minor stir in entertainment for a hot second and no one else would care, or I was fully mentally prepared to have to legally change my name and move to a small town somewhere. Amy Lightfoot was the name that I chose, in case you were wondering. Never in my wildest dreams did I expect that it would resonate so widely and create such a ripple effect. Never. And when it did, I was overwhelmed with gratitude. But as time wore on, I started to feel a little concerned. With any seismic social shift, there tends to be a pendulum swing of reactionism. But instead of gradually kind of evening out, we seem to have gotten stuck oscillating between what was she wearing and cancel him. We love to define things in binary ways. Good, bad, rapist, liar. And it's understandable. It's a whole lot easier and way more comforting to think there's only one objective reality that someone either got right or wrong. But that's not how life works. That sure as hell isn't how human interactions work. And the more we cling to this idea of only two sides, the less we're able to talk about things as they actually are. And what things actually are is gray as hell. The irony of this pendulum swing between cancel culture and she asked for it, with everyone just getting madder and more divided, is that the vast majority of us, and I'll assume everyone here is on the same team. We all want to stop rape and assault, right? Yeah, big up, yeah. And I think we can all agree that connecting is hard enough without having to also feel like anything you do or say could ruin your life because you're not sure where the boundaries are. We all want clarity, which we can't find if we've closed ourselves off to communication. To stop this violent, unproductive swinging will take all of us on this team here together. Whether you've been married 30 years, you're a proud player of the field, or you're headed to your first school dance, we all need to be brave enough to ask questions and really hear the answers, to take personal responsibility for the safety and connectedness of all of us. But when I initially conceptualized this talk, I didn't do that. Instead, I immediately dismissed myself as a potential transgressor. I'm a straight woman. I can't be a perpetrator against men. Do I look like I could overpower someone? As a blameless party, I could guide our path to clarity. But I won't ask anything of others that I won't do myself, so I thought through my inventory of experiences, and I remembered that one drunk, sloppy exchange. I'm a woman. No. I'd been awfully persistent. Maybe? I panicked at the thought that I could also transgress, that it could diminish my credibility, and I wanted to dismiss it on principle again. But dismissal is what got us here. Dismissal brought on by shame and fear. So I did some painful but fruitful soul searching. And here's what I realized. None of us are immune from wandering into the gray. To find our way out of it, we're going to have to bravely embrace humility. Each of us taking ownership of our individual roles in the gray area will help protect us collectively. Those who deliberately violate others exploit lack of clarity in order to do so. They rely upon our fear and shame-filled reticence to define what constitutes romantic consent. They hide their deliberate wrongdoing in the ambiguity we're too afraid to reconsider. Simultaneously, the less we communicate around how to ascertain boundaries and consent, the bigger the gray area gets, and the more likely that you or someone you love could unintentionally misconstrue what consent looks like. Also, life is heavy right now. We're all feeling disconnected. Let's not inject extra fear into those rare moments we get to go out or laugh or connect. If we have more open communal dialogue about the boundaries of consent, we can reduce the gray area, and we won't have to feel like we need to step so lightly. Let's make flirting fun again, damn it. Yeah! We can do this by bravely reflecting upon our experiences to learn to identify boundaries, by accepting other people's boundaries, even when they're different from our own, and by taking responsibility if we mess up. And when we do that, we get closer to what we really want, to be able to connect or choose not to connect with others without fear for our safety. So I'm going to walk the talk here. Let me tell you about the situation that made me reconsider my own role in the gray area. And hopefully I won't have to change my name to Amy Lightfoot after this. So, my perspective. I've been hooking up with this guy for a few weeks. We meet up at a bar, and he lets me come back to his house afterwards. So it's on. He keeps telling me he's not feeling it because we got into a minor disagreement at a bar, and he's still grumpy about it, but I keep pushing. He's bigger than me, and he could kick me out if he wanted to. I know we'll have fun. Eventually, after a lot of back and forth, we hook up. Does that sound like a date or two you've been on? But this isn't the objective perspective. My perspective isn't the one that matters when thinking about his willingness. And what I had to do a decade later was look at the encounter from what might have been his experience. He's been seeing this girl for a few weeks. They get into a little disagreement at a bar one night, and he just doesn't feel like having her to his place afterwards. She keeps pushing, and he relents. But once she's there, he realizes the only way to remove her would be to forcibly do so, blowing up any future relationship. She keeps trying to persuade him to hook up. Eventually, he gives in. Yuck. Ew. When I thought about what was probably actually going through his head, I went into a deep shame spiral. Was I a monster? Should I withdraw from TEDxPortland? From society? Where is the line between behaving yucky and real violation? We don't talk about the details of confusing situations like this. I forced myself to confess to a few different people, and it turned out to be an almost universal experience. In fact, some of my girlfriends also didn't realize that they could be transgressors. We have to start talking with each other about the gray area, Because the distinction between 100% consensual and a gray area is never just one thing, but a messy summation of things. And no one thing exempts us from entering the gray area. We can all be transgressors, and we all will mess up and end up in the gray in some way or form. Here's where I and a lot of us mess up. Consent can only be given by the one consenting. So if I'm trying to assess whether someone is consenting to an interaction with me, my interpretation of their response doesn't matter. Whether it seems like consent to me doesn't matter. And ignoring the other person's side of a situation doesn't make it less gray. It just means you're choosing not to see it. You're choosing to gamble with someone's potential pain to safeguard your own comfort. And that's what I did in that situation. I don't want to do that again. As I go forward, thank you. As I go forward, I want to jump from the pendulum swing and navigate the gray head on. And so here are some practical guidelines that I hope to follow and I invite you to do with me. Accept that I do not know better than the other person what they want. In turn, I'll expect that the other person is being honest with me when they're telling me what they want. And if you're wondering, well, what if they want me to chase them? We deserve not to have to risk creeping people out because of the rare time that someone wants us to jump through the hoops of acting disinterested. No. If I hear no, I won't argue it. No matter what my feelings are, how painful a no is to hear, or how it's said, I cannot respond in anger or hurt. If people don't feel like they can clearly say no without backlash, they may not feel safe enough to be honest, which makes us all less safe from racing up that grayscale. If I'm getting mixed messages, I'll ask. If the person actually is into it, we can feel more confident in our actions. Confidence meeting enthusiasm? Oh, baby. On a broader level, no matter how we were raised or what ideas we were raised with, we need to stop socially slut or prude shaming people for being honest about what they want. Men can say no, women can say yes, whenever and for whatever reason. People can draw their boundaries where they want to. They're their boundaries. When people feel like they can't be honest about their comfort level, it leads to confusion for everybody. Along the same lines, let's ease up on the outside blame and judgment when a gray area transgression does occur. The only person qualified to say whether something was a transgression and its severity is the person on the receiving end. The more spectators pile on someone's pain after they take responsibility for unintentionally overstepping a boundary, the less likely they'll be to look for the boundary in the first place. And I'm not going to say that I'll learn to be comfortable being uncomfortable around this. It'll always be uncomfortable. But I'll be okay being uncomfortable. I am brave and strong enough to weather being embarrassed. And I will be, because the inevitability of each of us messing up and ending up in the gray area is as universal as our desire for clarity. And the gray area will change. Our standards for acceptable will evolve as we evolve. And that's a great thing. If we're not changing, we're not getting better. If we keep open the lines of communication and hold respect for each other, we'll be able to keep up with any natural evolution that may happen. So what matters in the gray area is not whether you mess up, but how you deal. Whew, back. To face it head on is the scariest and bravest thing you can do. The only way to stop the pendulum from swinging ever more wildly is to change how we view romantic consent so we can address it more productively by acknowledging the existence of a gray area, communicating more clearly and kindly around boundaries of consent, and taking responsibility if we transgress. It's the only way we'll find the true connection we're all looking for.